warm welcome to all of you to the session on the investment opportunities for UK in Sri Lanka. The session will be moderated by Ms. Roshani Jayasundara Moraes, President of the Council for Business with Britain of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Roshani, over to you.
You're with the country session for the UK of the Sri Lanka Investor Forum 2021 Day 2. Ayubowan, good morning to those joining from the UK and good afternoon to everyone else joining from Sri Lanka and Asia. A warm welcome to this session organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, BOI, and the Colombo Stock Exchange. As the current president of the Council for Business with Britain, it is indeed my privilege to moderate the session today. CBB, as we are known, is the organization working under the aegis of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce that facilitates trade and investment between the two countries. Therefore, if you have any queries or if you need any assistance, please do reach out to us, the Chamber, or any of the panel members or regulators present today. With that said, I'd like to open today's session where we position Sri Lanka as a gateway to South Asia and the next growth haven in Asia. We sit next to almost a $3 trillion economy and a population of 1.7 to 1.8 billion people with a large growing middle class and a young demographic. Armed with the FTAs with India and Pakistan and the joint FTA with the SAARC countries, the SAFTA, and excellent relations, I might add, with all the SAARC countries, we're well placed to facilitate companies to access the larger markets in South Asia. We're also placed close to the next largest economy, China, placed geographically in the middle of the main trade lanes between trade and sea lanes between the East and the West. If you listen to some of the presenters and the testimonials yesterday, some of the current investors who have been operating here mentioned the advantages of operating in Sri Lanka. And I quote that we are a resilient nation. Most say that we are the most livable city in South Asia, that we have excellent human capital, a low-cost base, and an excellent location for logistics. This is evidenced by almost 1,200 odd foreign companies that are already operating within our shores. Today, we will be joined by Her Excellency Saroja Sirisena, the Sri Lankan High Commissioner to the UK, Dr. Lakshmini Mendis, Minister Commercial of the Sri Lankan High Commission in the UK, Mr. Shehan Silva, Mr. David Rose, and Ms. Thana Sivasambu, along with Dr. Lakshmini Mendis. And we'll have Mr. Dumit Fernando, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, who's present here with us, Mr. Sanjay Mohotala, Chairman of the BOI, as speakers. And on the panel, we have Melanie Hutanen, representing Dilaru, a company that has been operating in Sri Lanka for decades, Mr. Arjuna Nanakkara, Head of Shared Services of the Colombo Stock Exchange Group, and we have Mr. Mark Protero, CEO of HSBC in Sri Lanka and Maldives, and also the immediate past president of the CBB. To start off the session, may I now invite Mr. Saroja Sirisena to make her opening remarks, and we have that as a recording, and if we can play that now.
Good morning to all joining in the UK, and good afternoon to those of you joining in Sri Lanka. I'm pleased to address this session dedicated to the United Kingdom at Asia's first and largest virtual investment forum, Invest Sri Lanka 2021, to showcase the range of trade and investment opportunities Sri Lanka has to offer the world. It is especially timely when the United Kingdom is pursuing an ambitious goal to secure free trade agreements and foster trade and investment ties with its trading partners in a post-Brexit scenario. I would like to thank the organizers, the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, the Colombo Stock Exchange for organizing this event. I also thank the moderator, Mrs. Roshani Moraes, and all the speakers joining from Sri Lanka and the UK for their contribution to making this session a success. The UK is Sri Lanka's second largest export market, recording around $1 billion, which is actually 10% of our total exports in 2020. It is also a market for services exports such as IT and BPM and financial services. The UK is a long-standing investor and was the second largest investment partner for Sri Lanka in 2019. UK companies have invested in apparel, financial services, ICT, BPM, tourism, manufacturing, infrastructure, education, and the pharmaceutical sector. Among the main investors in Sri Lanka are HSBC, the London Stock Exchange Group, Unilever, De La Rue, GlaxoSmithKline, and many more throughout the years. There are many reasons for these well-known global corporates, which are among 1,200 foreign companies operating in Sri Lanka, to invest and continue to reinvest in Sri Lanka. For most of these companies, Sri Lanka is a unique investment destination, recognized for its talented human capital. Highly qualified IT, certified management, accountants, and engineering graduates take the lead in this drive. The highly trainable and English literate workforce is an outcome of 7 decades of free education and health services offered by the government. This aspect was recently highlighted in the Legatum Prosperity Index published in 2020. The report had identified that Sri Lanka had made remarkable progress, resulting from concerted and sustained efforts by the government to build institutional capacity and quality of the healthcare and education sectors for increasing access to its citizens in these sectors, which are key enablers of prosperity, especially outside the main cities. The government has ambitious plans to drive economic growth, double the national output from its current level, and to increase the GDP per capita to $8,000 by the year 2030. The government's economic policy framework, which is based on vistas of prosperity and splendor, aims at ensuring equitable and shared sustainable economic growth. Sri Lanka is the first country in South Asia to liberalize its economy, and is still the most liberalized economy in the region. It not only guarantees the protection of investment by its constitution, but also has a robust investment policy and investor-friendly incentive framework in place. Investors are guaranteed preferential taxes, tax holidays, exemption on foreign exchange measures, customs duty for capital goods, and most importantly, 100% repatriation of profit. The legal system, based on Roman Dutch law and English common law, is equipped to address matters related to IP rights and facilitate disputes through commercial arbitration. Bilateral investment promotion and protection treaties with 28 countries, including with the United Kingdom, and double taxation avoidance agreements with 44 countries, also signed with the UK, provides further assurance and legal protection for investments. Another much sought-after reason to attract investments is the infrastructure and other facilities offered to its investors. Complementing its geostrategic position in the Indian Ocean, connecting East and West, the efficient and reliable telecommunications and other technologies, speedy connectivity through its road and rail network, expressways, air and shipping routes, ports, and world-renowned harbours, state-of-the-art office spaces and other facilities offered at the Board of Investment zones are to name a few. Sri Lanka has 13 investment zones at the present time under the Board of Investment. In addition, 5 more specific zones are underway with the objective to boosting the economy. The pharmaceutical zone in Hambantota, which is within close proximity to the Hambantota port to fulfill 40% of the local pharmaceutical needs by 2025, the textile zone in Iravur in the eastern province to develop the fabric base for apparel manufacturing, the rubber production zone in Millenia, IT parks, and zone for electrical and electronic products. Sri Lanka continues to attract businesses across multiple sectors such as manufacturing of high value added and high-tech products, IT BPM services, hospitality and tourism, agriculture and food processing, construction and infrastructure, logistics and education. In addition to these dedicated zones, a special legislation was passed recently to ensure incentives and exemptions for investments in the Colombo Port City project. This cityscape with state-of-the-art facilities will be a financial hub in the fastest growing Asian region. Fintech, education, recreational services and infrastructure investments are available in the port city to the UK investors. In addition, the UK being strong in the pharmaceutical, manufacturing and renewable energy sectors, the opportunities are numerous. Increasing power generation from renewable sources such as wind and solar power projects to supply to the national grid, investments in the tourism sector such as wellness, medical sector, MICE tourism, resorts, entertainment facilities, and experiential tourism projects that attract the high-spending tourist are ideal for UK companies. Mr. Sanjay Mohatala, Chairman of the Board of Investment, would no doubt be elaborating more on these opportunities. In addition to foreign direct investment opportunities, portfolio investments in capital markets are also an attractive investment opportunity for UK businesses and high net worth individuals. We are privileged to have with us today Mr. Dumit Fernando, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, to explain these opportunities better. I invite you to explore Sri Lanka, the most investor-friendly destination in our region, and join the 1,200 companies already operating successfully with investments that have a transformative impact to the economy. I wish you success for a productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshani. Good morning to all UK participants and good afternoon to all joining from Sri Lanka. I intend to focus my presentation on questions commonly asked by potential investors and businesses, and further intend to elaborate with two testimonies of UK companies trading with Sri Lanka. The first obvious question is, what are the business opportunities in Sri Lanka? Prior to answering this question, as mentioned before, UK is the second single largest export market with a total trade turnover of $1.3 billion. When looking at the composition of exports, of the top 200 products at HS 6-digit level, around 70% comprise of apparel and apparel-related products. Such concentration can interpret opportunities, implying the need for diversification of products and markets in line with the government policy to enhance exports. On the other hand, apparel sector being a matured industry, having operated for over 4 decades, has the expertise to move into more sophisticated, value-added areas within the sector. One such example would be the green apparel factory of Brandex in Seethuwa, which embraced the sustainable practices in 2008 and was the world's first apparel manufacturing facility to be rated platinum under the LEED Green Building Rating System. Having sustainability ingrained in the company, the second green factory of the same company in Batiklo has been awarded the world's first net zero carbon certification. Moreover, Sri Lankan apparel companies have advanced into consumer-centric collaborative processes, taking the lead in innovation, design and manufacturing. Sri Lanka has also introduced internationally reputed homegrown brands such as Amante, Arugambe, Avirate and Aditi. In addition to apparel, what are the other main products exported to the UK and to the world? Starting with rubber products. Sri Lankan surgical gloves actually exhausted its capacity during the pandemic. In addition, pneumatic and solid tires, auto parts, electrical and electronic components, medical devices, industrial footwear, and natural rubber pillows and mattresses are on offer. As you know, Sri Lanka being a major tea exporter, proudly producing Ceylon tea brand, not only offers black, green teas and flavored teas, but more trendy and innovative range including herbal, wellness, ready-to-drink teas, tea tablets and tea-based spa products. Then when we look at the coconut products, which accounts for 3% of the total exports to the UK, export earnings have increased and the range has broadened in recent years for its health benefits. Desiccated coconut, coconut milk powder, virgin coconut oil, then the creams, cocoa pit, cocoa pods, brushes, brooms, mats, activated carbons, and geotextiles preventing soil erosion are in demand. Sri Lanka also exports seafood. Major varieties such as yellowfin tuna, lobsters, crabs, tiger prawns, squids, cuttlefish, and shark fin. These are popular here in UK and are served in high-end UK restaurants and supermarkets as well. With regard to spices and concentrations, Sri Lanka, being well known for its cinnamon, also exports cloves, pepper, nutmeg, cardamom, and as well as essential oils and other extracts. Another promising sector is processed food. Sri Lanka produces dehydrated fruits and vegetables, frozen food, alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages such as Colombo gin, which is sold in the UK as well. In addition to these, Sri Lanka exports and promotes merchandise products such as Ayurveda and herbal products, ceramic and porcelain, footwear, bicycles, toys, electric and electronic components, printing and packaging related products, and also services such as ICT, BPM services, tourism, especially wellness tourism, logistics, marine and offshore engineering, for example. Specifically, ICT sector, which contributed $2 billion for during 2019, contributed further during the pandemic, indicating its higher potential to grow in the future. Sri Lanka is being promoted in the UK market also as a logistics hub in Asia and a business hub and an ICT center of excellence in Asia. That this is done in collaboration with the UK Chambers and the EDB. If there are any businesses interested to know more about Sri Lankan companies in these sectors, please do feel free to contact the commercial section of this mission. Sri Lankan exports are known for its quality. Therefore, we are exploring niche markets in the UK as well. Now, I believe we should take a little break to listen to two short testimonies to understand the trading relationships and the experiences of two UK companies. Starting with Mr. David Rose. Mr. Rose is the CEO of the Garment Services Group, who has been an investor in the apparel sector for 39 long years. It's over to you, David.
Thank you. I'm delighted to have been invited by the High Commission to say a few words today at this investment forum. Having lived in and worked out of Colombo for almost 40 years and seen that those advantages which initially attracted us to start business through difficult times which have been overcome through true grit and determination continues to justify Sri Lanka today as a choice location for competitive production and reliable export. We are in the fashion apparel business. Our model is product-led ladies' wear, offering constant style changes, large size ranges, small quantities. Effectively, Garment Services is a boutique business which has thrived through recognizing buyer satisfaction is the reward for commitment and service. We have invested heavily in product development, in fabric printing, and in micro-factory concepts. Of course, the climate helps, and it's great if you're a social cyclist or a golfer. Not only for the apparel business, but for any industry which sees the importance to their offer of an educated workforce, of universal use of English as the language of business throughout the island, having excellent digital communication, and a fine and growing network of expressways, resulting in a logistics scenario where goods can leave the factory on a Saturday night and be on a vessel itself Monday. This is a compact, manageable market, and its pivotal location between Europe and the Far East, not forgetting the Indian subcontinent, makes it a truly excellent source for onward distribution. The advantages of tariff preferences into the UK and Europe is a great benefit in keeping Sri Lanka competitive with developing nations in the region. In the world that has so dramatically changed through the pandemic, buyers see that those who recognise the critical importance of fast response and speed to market provide the critical elements in supply chain organisation and management. and which, together with continual product development and design, are the true fit to be in their future strategic plans. Fundamental to making speed a reality is that the Sri Lankan customs procedures facilitates import of materials for process and export cleared within hours. Through major investment, its ports are recognised as state-of-the-art, while air freight cargo is handled daily by key major airlines. All these elements contribute to making our own online business, along with so many others, not just in apparel, consider Sri Lanka as an operational hub that truly adds value and seriously benefits their operations. How much potential for an intelligent, hard-working workforce to motivate them to do better. Encouraging investment has been the boost to make this speed to market a reality and achieving shipments and deliveries beyond expectation. Positive attitude by local business and government bodies makes that difference in buyers seeing value not just in price negotiation, but in their net achieved bottom line margin through service, flexibility, good communication and integrity. Our group will continue to invest in this attitude advantage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rose, for your encouraging presentation. So at this point, let me introduce Ms. Thana Sivasambu, the CEO and founder of Ruzi Foods, a brand recognized by the British Guild of Fine Foods. Ruzi products showcases Sri Lankan flavors and condiments in the UK market. Ruzi Foods supports local farmers and jobs in Sri Lanka, with all products being made and packed in Sri Lanka. Beyond these inclusive and sustainable initiatives, the products are also recognized for their taste and quality in the UK, having won Great Taste Awards consecutively since 2017. So now it's over to you, Ms. Sivasambu.
Hello, Vanakkam. I'm Thana Sivasambu, entrepreneur and business advisor. As a native Sri Lankan Tamil, settled and living in the UK for nearly 35 years, it all started for me with a visit to Sri Lanka in 2009 to participate in a business forum. And during the visit, I was able to witness the devastation caused by the conflict. And that's when I decided I got to do something. So my first project was to start a training center in Jaffna. And during those early days, there wasn't much transport or infrastructure available in Jaffna, even though I was able to register a company, find and refurbish a premises, contract academic staff, and set up the center within 6 months. So where this led on to is that in 2016, I took a leap of faith and quit my finance career to focus full-time on projects in Sri Lanka. And that is how my brand, Ruzi, Taste of Sri Lanka, was born. It's a concept to support the local farmers, buying directly from them at a fair price. Recipe creation, product development, manufacturing, packaging is all done in Sri Lanka and shipped ready to market. It has won a lot of awards in the UK and marketed online in UK and Europe. So what are the business advantages in setting up a manufacturing organization in Sri Lanka is that all my products are imported duty-free because they enjoy the generalized system of preferences, the GSP enhanced program. There are a lot of other Sri Lankan manufactured products that enjoy this duty-free status and can be imported duty-free into the UK. Of course, there are challenges and lessons learned. And in my experience, the important thing is to learn the local legislation and the compliance requirements that relates to your project. And this information and support is available through government departments. If you're in a regional area, the regional government departments, the regional divisional secretariat offices, the local Grama Sevaka, they're all very, very supportive and informative and then give you all the information. And in overseas countries, the support is given through the trade divisions of the Sri Lanka High Commission. For example, during the big Brexit transition, I got a lot of support from the trade division of the Sri Lanka High Commission in the UK in clarifying the situation about the duty structure due to the transition and how it can be managed. And it was quite easy for me to manage the transition. And the other advantage is that, I'm not saying this because I'm a native, but it's a beautiful country and the people are warm and welcoming and very, very helpful and supportive. and the food is just lovely. So I think you should seriously think about setting up your project in Sri Lanka. It will help Sri Lanka in its economic challenge and to overcome this global crisis situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sivasambu, for the inspiring presentation. Let me now turn to the second question. What are the market access opportunities for Sri Lankan exports? Starting with the UK market. During the post-Brexit and the transition period, Sri Lankan exports benefited from the EU GSP Plus scheme, with effect from 1st of January 2021. Enhanced framework, the UK Generalised Scheme of Preference, a replicate of EU GSP Plus scheme, a somewhat replicate, was implemented. This scheme provides zero duty preferential tariffs for most of the Sri Lankan exports. Further, having negotiated to protect Sri Lankan exports from preference erosion, the main export items from Sri Lanka are shielded in the UK global tariff. And as a result, market competitiveness in the UK has been assured. This mission is geared towards further negotiations on enhanced framework reviews and initiating and consolidating any trade arrangements which can take place in the future. Meantime, despite UK's ambitious drive for FTAs with its trading partners, this mission is focusing on the extended cumulation provisions stipulated under the UK GSP scheme, where the inputs of these third countries could be considered as country of origin to facilitate Sri Lankan exports during the enhanced framework implemented period. Then also, Sri Lanka is a gateway for other markets through its packety bowl of trade agreements. Sri Lanka has 3 FTAs with trading partners, India, Pakistan and Singapore. Further, Sri Lanka is also a member of the regional agreements such as APTA, the Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement, previously known as the Bangkok Agreement, and the oldest preferential trade agreement in Asia. The APTA member countries, which include South Korea and China, cover a total population about 2.5 billion. Sri Lanka is also a member of the SAARC Preferential Trading Arrangement and South Asian Free Trade Area. In addition, unilateral non-reciprocal preferential schemes such as EU GSP scheme, which covers 26 EU countries along with 9 other developed countries, of which GSP is mostly utilized in exports to Russia, USA, Japan and Canada. Also, Sri Lankan exports benefits under the Global System of Trade Preferences, that is GSTP, initiated by the UNTAD to develop trading opportunities among 42 developing countries. Now the third question would be how to get more information about these opportunities. There are many options, but the best would be to contact the commercial section of the Sri Lanka High Commission in London. We will be able to assist you with relevant information such as preferential tariffs, arranging B2B meetings, introducing buyers and sellers, arranging meetings with relevant agencies in Sri Lanka, information on trade delegations and webinars, etc. Now at this point, let me introduce the UK Sri Lanka Business Chamber formed by the Sri Lankan High Commission in London to facilitate bilateral trade and investment opportunities and create a dialogue among UK businesses trading with Sri Lanka. This chamber will be incorporated and registered with the British Chamber of Commerce shortly. The president representing HSBC is Mr. Shehan Silva, who is head of the Digital for Product and Propositions, Global Trade and Receivables Finance at HSBC. Now over to you, Shehan, to introduce the chamber and its proposed activities.
Thank you, Lakmini, and good afternoon, everyone. By way of introduction, I work for HSBC and I'm pleased to take on this role as the founder president of the proposed Sri Lanka United Kingdom Chamber of Commerce. The UK is a hugely important market for Sri Lanka in terms of trade, investment and tourism. It is the second largest export market for trade and tourism, contributing over $1 billion of exports to the economy, and is also one of the main investment destinations. Having such a chamber in the UK is seen as a key enabler to support further growth in trade and commerce between these two countries. And this is exactly what we want to do with this new chamber. I'm pleased to say that over the past few months, we have been working with the British Chamber of Commerce and are now in the final stages of registering the entity. I'm joined by a group of 15 individuals who have volunteered as the initial directors of the Chamber. They represent a range of industries that are also priority sectors for Sri Lanka. This includes apparel, banking, tourism, manufacturing, tea, technology, and professional services. Several others outside of this initial core group have also expressed an interest in supporting the activities of the Chamber, and the intention is that they will have the opportunity to be involved via industry-specific groups that we plan to set up. The launch of the Chamber is now imminent, and really pleased that despite the lockdown and no face-to-face interaction, we are hopeful that we will be able to launch before the end of June. We have a set of activities that have been planned together with the initial proposed board that are lined up for the second half of the year. Just a quick overview of what can be expected. The first priority will be the launch of the membership and partnerships program. This is critical for our success, and I want to invite as many of you to get involved as possible and sign up as members and partners. Members will have the benefit of participating in the many events and activities we have planned. Just a quick overview. There will be webinars and events arranged together with speakers in Sri Lanka to support activities between the two countries. There will be industry-specific discussions and initiatives so that those of you who like to get involved can contribute ideas, discuss opportunities, and also make suggestions and recommendations on how to further grow trade and commerce in your specific industry between these two countries. And finally, it will also serve as a communication channel for key updates and developments that are relevant to trade and commerce between Sri Lanka and the UK. We also intend to launch a partnerships program. So we propose to have different categories of partnerships: gold, silver, bronze, initially to start off with. And these partners will have preferential access to the events and activities of the Chamber with visibility to entities in the UK and Sri Lanka. The High Commissioner in the UK will be a patron of the Chamber. And we also plan to work closely with the various entities and chambers in Sri Lanka so that we are supporting each other and collaborating to make it effective at both ends to achieve the same objectives. That was a very quick overview of where we are at with the setup of the proposed Sri Lanka United Kingdom Chamber of Commerce. I would like to invite businesses that are in the UK currently active in Sri Lanka or looking to be active in Sri Lanka in the future to join us as members once we launch. And we hope that this will provide the platform for us to further grow trade and commerce between these two countries. And I look forward to your support to make this a success. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shehan. Now, finally, let me thank the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, BOI, and the Colombo Stock Exchange for organizing this event, and especially our moderator today, Mrs. Roshani Jayasundara Moraes, Ms. Sivasambu, Mr. Rose, Mr. Silva for willingly accepting this mission's invitation to share their experience and presentation under the theme Trading Opportunities in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lakmini. That was Dr. Lakmini Mendis, Minister Commercial of the Sri Lanka High Commission in the UK. And my thanks to David, Shehan and Thana for those kind words and encouraging words. Next, we move on to Dumit Fernando, who will present to us his thoughts and his way forward and plans on the Colombo Stock Exchange. Dumit, over to you.
Thank you, Roshani, and a very warm welcome to everyone, particularly those of you dialing in from the UK. Now, Sri Lanka and the UK have had a very long history of relationships, so there's not very much that is actually undiscovered about Sri Lanka for those of you in the UK. However, we do think that there is one area that is yet to be fully discovered, and that's investments in Sri Lanka, both direct and portfolio investments. And I will dedicate a few minutes here to explain to you some of the portfolio investment opportunities available, particularly through the Colombo Stock Exchange. My objective would be to give you an introduction of the Colombo Stock Exchange and the possibilities there. Secondly, talk a little bit about our future plans for the exchange, because it's a very exciting time actually to be involved with the exchange, given that we have a very transformational plan over the next few years. And then finally, speak to you about some of the deep value opportunities available at the Colombo Stock Exchange, which I think would be of interest to any global investor. Let me start with how this Colombo Stock Exchange has performed. The performance of the Colombo Stock Exchange has kept up or been ahead of many emerging markets over the last 12 months, particularly since the pandemic. So the market has been up 66% as of yesterday from the end of the March quarter in 2020, which is ahead of the frontier market and emerging market indices globally. Year to date, again, it is ahead of the other indices. We've performed with values up 12% year to date. And even over a longer period, if you go back 3 years, you see that there's been pretty solid performance matching the performance of emerging markets in general. So what's in the Colombo Stock Exchange? If I take a quick look at the industries that are represented here, I'm happy to say that there is a good representation of the Sri Lankan economy represented here in the Colombo Stock Exchange's listed companies. From food and beverages to capital goods to banking and non-banking financial services, materials and other industries. You've got a wide variety of options. And there are, in fact, some other industries like real estate or logistics, which are not as well represented in individual companies, but can be seen within conglomerates, and in particular, some new initial public offerings that are in the pipeline this year at the stock exchange. So the next thing I think that'll interest most people is who's actually trading on the Colombo Stock Exchange. If you go back 3 years, about 45% of the exchange was traded by foreign investors. Now that has dropped this year, not unlike many other emerging and frontier markets since the pandemic. But there is a silver lining here. I think what we have seen is at a time where trading volumes have literally gone through the ceiling, you've seen the local investor base, individuals and institutions, playing a very active role, showing you the depth of resilience of the local investor base. So I invite foreign investors to come take a further look, because there's a lot of strong support in this market driven by the local investor base. Now I'll pause there for a minute to just explain to foreign investors in particular how easy or difficult it is to operate in this market. Firstly, trading on the Colombo Stock Exchange is fairly straightforward. Opening an account here at the central depository system takes about 2 weeks once you have identified your intermediaries, which could be a custodian bank if you're an institution, or a domestic stockbroker if you're an individual. The entire KYC and client onboarding process can be done within a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. Secondly, the ease of bringing funds in and out of this market is one of the hallmarks of our exchange. Since 1992, we've had regulations which allow foreign investors to operate their funds through an inward investment account, which can be opened at one of the banks in Sri Lanka, where you can invest your monies into the stock market and also take your monies out, whether it's through the sale proceeds or dividends received through the stock exchange. So that has been resilient and unchanged over that entire 30-year period. The next point of concern, of course, is the tax environment. Here again, there is good news. Capital gains tax is at 0, and that's for both local and foreign investors. And dividends are also taxed at 0% for foreign investors in particular. So it's a very favorable environment there as well. In addition to that, the market regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, and the Colombo Stock Exchange take corporate governance very seriously. It is in our interest to protect minority investor rights, and therefore we play a strong role, and we have established a framework that has corporate governance rules, strong international accounting standards, and strong transparency rules that should make any foreign investor comfortable operating in this market. Now, let me talk a little bit about what we are as a market. Over the last 35 years of our operation, we've had some very good successes. We were one of the earliest to go electronic, both in terms of dematerializing shares as well as electronic trading. And we've traded two instruments primarily, which is stocks and corporate debentures. Now, what's exciting over the next 5 years is we've got a plan to move this exchange into a regional or global standard with multi-products, multiple asset classes, infrastructure developments that will make this safer and less risky for any type of investor. And we will be introducing things or products that most foreign investors are quite familiar with, like real estate investment trusts, like gold-backed products, debt repo trading, multi-currency exchanges for local companies, followed by things like mortgage-backed securities, stock borrowing and lending, overnight short selling, and so on. Now, for the sophisticated investor, this should make you comfortable that there are multiple ways of allocating your portfolios into Sri Lankan exposure and also risk managing it somewhat better than you can today. But for the simpler investor who is interested in pure exposure into stocks or bonds, that market has existed for 35 years, so you are on very good footing there again to operate in this market. So the next thing I think most investors want to hear about is how attractive is this market? And there again, I'm pleased to say that we have a deep value market with high earnings growth, and this is a great time for you to be at this forum and get an introduction into the stock markets of Sri Lanka. So where is Sri Lanka valued? Relative to most countries in the region, as well as relative to some of the major benchmark indices around the world, the Sri Lankan indices, which are in yellow on the chart you see, are actually quite low in value. Now, you might say that this is a bad thing, but in fact, we see this as a real positive. This represents deep value in the context of the earnings growth that is going on in this market. Now, in the context of other markets in the frontier markets in particular, this chart shows you the relative discount or the premium, as it might be, of the Colombo Stock Exchange over time. The Colombo Stock Exchange has at times traded at a premium, which is when the chart is above the horizontal line. But at the moment, it is at a discount and at a wider discount than it has been at many times, many points of time in history. Now, why is this interesting? This valuation is not a result of bad earnings. In fact, it is the exact opposite. So it's interesting right now to be in this market because earnings growth in this market is outperforming other markets very significantly, while the valuation seems to be at a discount. This chart gives you a sense of where Sri Lankan company earnings are at the moment. So that's once again the yellow bar, which shows that over the last 3 or 4 quarters, Sri Lankan corporate earnings has vastly outperformed other markets. This once again goes to show that you're investing in not just a safe, but a high growth market with exposure to the Colombo Stock Exchange. Now, a challenge for many frontier markets in the past has been liquidity. And this has been a challenge for the Colombo Stock Exchange as well. But there is good news here as well. If you go to the liquidity profile of the Sri Lankan markets, we have had the market, in relative terms, a smaller market in the region, trading about $5 to $6 million a day from 2016 until 2019. Now that jumped significantly to over $10 million in 2020, and this year it has doubled once again to $23 million a day. Now within that, there's also the number of companies who trade high volumes has gone from about 10 to 37. So this also shows you that there is significant opportunity to invest in many types of companies, not just one or two stocks, and look for an opportunity to enhance your portfolio performance altogether. Now, as a foreign investor, one other relevant point is always going to be how correlated is this market to other markets that you might be invested in. I will show you very quickly that the ASPI, or the All Share Price Index of the Colombo Stock Exchange, has a very low correlation to many other major indices like the S&P 500 in the US, the Emerging Markets Index, or the Global Index, compared to the correlation among or between other indices around the world. So once again, a good opportunity for diversification of your portfolio. Now I will end with three key messages. Firstly, we are operating well, and we have affirmed our continuity of operations through all scenarios during the pandemic, including lockdowns and curfews. We've digitalized our exchange, and we're on a very good footing there to offer continuous operations now. Secondly, the transformation I spoke about, which was launched last year, will provide an exciting multi-product rollout over the next few years with world-class trading infrastructure that should continue to reduce risk of trading in this market. And finally, Sri Lankan equities at the moment offer a unique outperformance opportunity. It has deep value, market-beating growth levels, and invite you, all of you, to take a good look at the Colombo Stock Exchange. There will be lots of material coming out of this forum, material available at the Colombo Stock Exchange and through your intermediaries that will help you get to know this market a lot better. And we welcome you. We hope that you are enjoying this forum, and we hope that we will see some of you becoming active participants in the market soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dumit. That was Mr. Dumit Fernando, Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, speaking on the Colombo Stock Exchange and our capital markets. I now turn to Sanjay Mohotala, Chairman of the BOI, and please invite you to elaborate on investment opportunities and how we facilitate external investors.
Thanks, Roshani. Thanks, Dumit. Good morning to everyone who's joining us from London, and good afternoon, good evening for everyone who's joining from Asia. I think a lot of the speakers who went before me spoke about what Sri Lanka offers and some of the unique investment opportunities. Let me take you through very quickly and briefly the foundation that we have as a country and also what opportunity that presents as a nation. I'm sure, given our past links with UK, many of you might have experienced, traveled, and realized how mesmerizing Sri Lanka and its hospitality can be. But I think beyond this beauty, there's many more this country has to offer beyond the capital markets in terms of the growth opportunities. So let me just take you through four things. One is the strong fundamentals Sri Lanka possesses, its growth ambitions in doubling the GDP, the policy and the investment orchestration which has been put in place to realize it, resulting investment opportunities for investors to make Sri Lanka the next growth haven. Sri Lanka today is a strategically located economy with great access to emerging and established markets. Sri Lanka has been growing at 5% even through adversity, even during the war, post-war. Even if you look at the last 10 years, it's been averaging at least 5% per capita GDP growth, despite the last 3 years, I would say recent years of challenges. We are a country at $4,000 per GDP per capita. And this is why is that interesting? Because around $4,000 per capita GDP is where countries really take off if the policy orchestration and the private sector participation is right. So we are ripe in terms of that inflection point. Next wave of rapid growth is expected in South Asia, where India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and also in East Africa, and of course Sri Lanka as well. So we have quite a bit of tailwinds to take advantage of. Well, Sri Lanka is already the epicenter when it comes to transshipment and regional economics. We have two world-class airports, three international airports, two world-class ports, and many regional airports. We are the epicenter, and we are becoming one of the strategic locations to trade with all of these regions and the countries that I talked about, accessing to close about 3 billion people who are upward mobile and contributing to large amount of medium affluent consumers. We are a skill powerhouse, and I'm sure the gentlemen on the panel will talk about why they came to Sri Lanka and will attest to what I'm talking about here. It is a great place to live, enjoy life, and work, right? We have an extremely educated population. We have almost 100% literacy among youth, almost 50% digital literacy, 30% computer literacy. And as you saw in the beginning of the presentation, we are an island of charm. We do offer something for everyone. And we are recognized frequently as the #1 place to live and work, especially Colombo. So it's a melting pot, and and as Roshani mentioned, just along with BOI, we have 1,200 companies who have made Sri Lanka their home. Well, yes, we are looking to usher in a decade of growth to double our GDP. We are very well known for our tea, rubber, coconut apparels, and I'm sure many of you in UK, when you go into purchase apparels, you have seen the labels of Made in Sri Lanka. But if you really look at this chart, Sri Lanka has to offer much more to a potential investor. Like taking a leaf from the manifesto outlined by His Excellency the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we have put forward the foundation to doubling GDP in the next decade, taking advantage of strong fundamentals the country has to offer, and also the economic tailwinds that I spoke about earlier, to create this compelling investment opportunity for both the investors as well as the nationals in the country. Let me just take you through a couple of these opportunities. If you take manufacturing, today, 85% of all exports out of Sri Lanka comes out of BOI companies, 1,200 foreign companies who are here. While allowing companies to expand their footprint here, we are looking to build few new billion-dollar verticals in the economy. One of them will be pharmaceuticals and upstream apparel, which I will take in a little bit more in detail. The third one would be electronics. Now, we are looking at sectors or segments that are emerging. So graphene has been something that's been discussion for the longest time. We're seeing more and more commercial applications of graphene that's coming through. Sri Lanka do possess one of the best quality raw material in terms of vein graphite, and some of the IP or the patents to extract graphene in the most economical sense. So there's a good opportunity to take advantage from the resources, the ICT knowledge base, and ride the wave in the Internet of Things. So there's an opportunity for the electronic segment that Sri Lanka offers. Beyond that, ICT segment, we are around 1.5 billion today, growing very rapidly. We are looking to expand it to 3 to 5 billion in the next 3 to 5 years. Well, tourism, post-COVID, we are looking to open up Sri Lanka soon and help and encourage visitors from UK, Europe, and many other countries to take advantage of what Sri Lanka has to offer in terms of doubling our tourism receipts, what we got in 2019. On the agri and food processing, Sri Lanka is already known for its agri exports. We are looking to add at least $3 to $5 billion worth of exports in this segment, especially looking at segments like rubber. Many of the farm equipment in UK run on tires that's manufactured in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is known as the solid tire capital or the off-road tire capital, accounting for about 30% of the tire output, global tire output in that segment. Some of the policy changes that the Sri Lanka has taken recently, where we are gradually looking to move towards organic farming, allows many companies who look to source organic produce can take advantage of what Sri Lanka has to offer in terms of organic produce point of view. Again, Sri Lanka has close to 1,700 kilometers of shoreline, large, massive, productive exclusive economic zone. So fishery is an area that Sri Lanka can take advantage and grow, just like what Indonesia or the Nordics have done. So there's ample and lucrative growth opportunities across all these agri and agri-processing sectors that I talked about. Well, the other services and infrastructure are the two last pillars that we look at. Sri Lanka has been sought after manufacturing destination throughout the years. With the completion of the port city and of course the enactment of the port city law, this law will support the service-related sectors like trading, banking, maritime service sectors to attract and to be like an attractive destination, just like Dubai, Qatar, and Labuan, for companies looking to set up their regional headquarters or regional hubs. As the country doubles the GDP, the infrastructure like apartments, roads, rapid rail networks would be required to cater to the upward mobile population that's going to come into the cities. So there's quite a bit of opportunities in the infra segment as well. And what are the strategic enablers that we are going to put in place for the country to, or the investors, to provide investors a attractive investment destination? The government is pro-development. We have taken many steps to improve the country's competitiveness and the future readiness. Many initiatives are underway to ensure our current cost competitiveness is maintained, significantly improving the ease of doing business, and have already introduced a tax policy consistency above all, and a stable government is in place. In addition, much awaited port city will create a premium investment destination to catalyze the key thrust sectors I spoke about earlier. Well, if all these are achieved, where a public and private partnership comes into place, with the investors taking advantage of what Sri Lanka has to offer and the government's initiatives to usher in inclusive growth, we should see a GDP growth north of 7%, resulting in export earnings and service earnings of close to about $30 billion by 2025. Building on the strong talent pool and to facilitate shift to the knowledge-based economy, government has set in motion educational reforms to align to future talent needs and also to take measures to increase the quality graduate pool output by 3x. Well, Sri Lanka will continue to maintain its liberal investment policies. We have allowed 100% profit expatriations, no hidden taxes levied on it. We have provided generous tax breaks for companies to come in and set up. And also BOI, he's here as one of the investors talked about, to facilitate the whole process in setting up and also in carrying out your activities in Sri Lanka. Let me just go through two sectors that I think will be quite interesting for some of the investors on the call from UK. So one is about dedicated farmer zone and industrial and leading incentives to set up a $1 billion export vertical by 2025. Well, Sri Lanka has taken measures to build a strong local farm industry to cater to the country's needs and also to build a new export vertical, taking advantage of the skills, the talent pools that the country has to offer, and also the existing farmer capabilities and the geographical shifts we see in this industry. A state-of-the-art 400-acre farmer zone that is being built adjoining the Hampandara port and the international airport will provide easy access to sea air logistics. The way that we are building this zone will have all the prerequisite approvals, whether it's environmental, regulatory, and other approvals, so that the manufacturing company can come in and set up in the country or in the zone without much hindrance, and they can look at starting their exports quite quickly. And we will work with the regulatory authority or NMRA to ensure that the prerequisite approval will be obtained quickly. To support this strategic initiative, the government has offered tax breaks up to 10 years, and of course, customized investments will be provided for large investors. So next, let me talk about ICT, and I'm sure panelists will talk much in length about the ICT sector and the exciting opportunities what Sri Lanka offers. Well, dubbed the island of ingenuity, Sri Lankan code powers multiple stock exchanges, boardrooms, banks, theme parks, and many other critical services. Sri Lanka looked to grow its IT sector and related exports by doubling the output by 2025. So we are investing into developing world-class talent pools, enabling infrastructure such as providing high-speed internet, even making it accessible from the rural communities, developing 5 focus technology IT parks, introducing new legislation and orchestration to catalyze startup ecosystem. And the global players such as HCL, who have come into the country in the last year, after seeing the quality of the talent pool that Sri Lanka offers, has decided to take advantage and grow rapidly in the country. And I'm quite excited to hear their growth ambitions in Sri Lanka. Recognizing the importance of this sector, the government has also introduced zero corporate tax for ICT companies. Well, the last one that I will talk about is tourism. It has been the best place to visit for many years. Whether you are a sun, sand, or sea seeker, whether you like the 2,500 years of heritage that Sri Lanka has to offer, or some of the best Sri Lankan cuisine and curries that you look for, or wildlife, in terms of a destination for wildlife outside Africa, Sri Lanka offers something unique for whatever your heart desire. And that's what makes Sri Lanka, or we call ourselves, So Sri Lanka. So to take advantage of this growth, there's investment opportunities in hospitality industry, especially in world-class hotels, medical tourism and wellness, theme parks, etc. There's several breakout sessions which are dedicated for tourism and the opportunities it provides. So I will encourage you to join one of those sessions to get to know more about the opportunities that Sri Lanka offers. Well, we talked about the fact that Sri Lanka has a low cost of doing business. In the budget itself, in the last budget, the government has outlined that there will be a 5-year of political consistency and 5 years of tax consistency to give certainty for the investors who come in. As I mentioned in the beginning, Sri Lanka offers one of the lowest productivity-adjusted labor costs for all segments across the labor force for many more actually loyal employment base compared to many of the competing destinations and lower salary inflation in the region. For investors, BOI provides tax-free capital good importation, provides facilitation to start up their businesses with the approvals and all that. And as Jetro mentions, we have one of the lowest power costs, reducing your cost of doing business in Sri Lanka. In addition, there's a concerted effort underway by the government to bring Sri Lanka to the top tier in terms of ease of doing business. There was a session today morning. Please tune into that. And you can hear about all the initiatives that have been already underway since coming into power a year ago. To name a few, there's legal reforms that have been carried out. There's been committee appointed with the public sector to drive deregularization in the country. There's whole effort underway for custom reforms. Cabinet subcommittee been appointed for investment-related policy decisions, and Honorable Minister Niwad Cabral, the State Minister for Money and Capital Markets and State Enterprise Reforms, has been entrusted to address issues pertaining to ease of doing business to bring Sri Lanka to the top tier by 2025. Well, above all, Sri Lanka is a stable democracy and provides a very low-risk environment for anyone who wants to look to set up the businesses here. In addition, Colombo Port City is the gateway to South Asia. The new addition to the Colombo CBD, the Colombo Port City, with its newly minted legislation, aim to be par with Dubai, Qatar, Labuan to facilitate its service sectors and encourage businesses to set up their regional HQs here to serve 3 billion plus consumers in the region. Well, if you're a real estate investor on the call, there's significant opportunity to capitalize here. Again, building on the hospitals, the international schools, entertainment districts, the marinas, mixed development, the list goes on. In summary, what does Sri Lanka offers? Well, we're looking to double our GDP in this decade. There are 6 thrust sectors and enablers, and you see there's quite a lot of interrelation or interlinkages between these 6 sectors, creating ample investment opportunities for investors. And we have created an investor-friendly business environment, which has been a very conducive investment environment, being one of the countries in whole of South Asia, or perhaps even Asia, to be one of the open economies since 1978. Well, I would encourage you to come and add your logo here. As Roshani mentioned, we have 1,200 foreign companies just through BOI, and there's many more who have made Sri Lanka their destination of choice when it comes to sourcing. If you look at the last year's capital formation that happened in Sri Lanka, through these 1,200 companies, 50% of that came in where existing companies was expanding their business footprint in Sri Lanka. So that's a testament in terms of what, as a country, Sri Lanka offers to an investor. Throughout the next 2 days and this session, you will hear from multiple industries and of course people who have set up office here, what Sri Lanka offers in terms of a compelling investment destination. So as BOI, we'll of course help you make the most of this opportunity, and I would encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity and consider Sri Lanka as your next investment destination.
Thank you, Sanjay. That was Sanjay Mohotala, Chairman of the BOI, talking on the trust sectors, the opportunities for investment, and the facilitation process that we are supporting. Having heard all of this, let's hear it from the people who have been operating on the ground, who have seen Sri Lanka in all seasons. Let's start with Melanie from De La Rue, who's joining us from the UK today. Melanie, you've been operating in Sri Lanka for many decades and are engaged in a high-precision, high-tech industry. Could you share your experience with us and perhaps elaborate on a few key highlights of your operation in Sri Lanka? You can perhaps also talk about the support you have received from the authorities to overcome any challenges you may have faced. Melanie?
Thank you, and greetings of the day to all. We're delighted to have this opportunity to join and to show our enthusiasm for doing business in Sri Lanka. As you rightly point out, Roshani, we started our operation in Biagama outside Colombo just over 30 years ago. And it is a joint venture with the Treasury, the government of Sri Lanka, on a sort of 40-60 basis, for De La Rue being the 60%. And we are delighted with the fact that from its start, where we were only producing about 150 million notes at the start over 30 years ago, we now do well over 1 billion, and it actually represents 20% of our production. De La Rue, as you may know, is the world's largest commercial supplier of banknotes, and we do about around 7 billion notes a year. And obviously, it's very important for us to be able to deliver the goods to our customers. We supply around 100 central banks with notes, and this has been particularly critical throughout the pandemic. And we're absolutely pleased to say that the dedication and professionalism of the Sri Lankan workforce, along with the support that we have received from BOI and high commissions and other bodies, we have actually been able to continue production and meet our customers' requirements, which of course, as a manufacturing business, is the reason for being there. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of those, our workers and the authorities that have enabled this to happen. And we very much look forward to resuming business as usual through once we get through this challenging time. So as I mentioned, we have been operating for over 30 years. We have continued to invest over that time, making sort of large investments in 2010 and then again more recently. And this has enabled us to grow the business and now we export about 80% of what is produced in Sri Lanka. So I think the key point for us is the workforce that is available and is very receptive to training. We engage in extensive training, and we've also sort of changed the style and brought in sort of more empowerment of the individual to take responsibility within their roles. And the staff have been very receptive, and we've been able to improve productivity in this way. So that's been great. Obviously, we have there's a very good available pool of skilled staff that we need, but we also have quite low staff turnover, which also helps. That is a very good advantage for us. And of course, you've mentioned the low cost. That is clearly a consideration with any manufacturing business. And we very much value the links that we have with Sri Lanka. We have almost a total local workforce. We only have a couple of UK citizens working at the plant, and the site has managed extremely well through the pandemic, despite those people sometimes being in the UK. So it is certainly a very compatible place to do business from overseas, and we particularly value the support that we get with from the Board of Investment, Sri Lankan Airways, and High Commissions, and of course our joint venture partner, the Treasury. All of these things make life easier for us, and it's a great place to do business. And we very much look forward to continuing and looking potentially to make further investments. It has obviously the advantage of the location. The location is a very great bonus for when we're exporting. We have customers all around the world, but it's very easy to reach them through Sri Lanka, and we obviously have close ties with the port and the airport, who are also very accommodating and support our business in Sri Lanka. So in short, we highly recommend our experience, and we hope to see Sri Lanka continue to thrive. And I think that the targets that have been set by the government, we very much hope that they will be achieved, and appreciate the visibility of taxation being held for the 5 years and that kind of thing, which all give more confidence and help us to do business there. So I think that's all I will say. It's a very positive experience, and we very much value what our operations in Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you for always being a supporter of Sri Lanka. I would now like to turn to Arjuna, whose investment is not as old as the other two we have on the panel. They entered Sri Lanka by an acquisition. And if you listen to D. Lianwala yesterday, he said they started working with a local company. London Stock Exchange started working with a local company, and they got so impressed, they ended up buying the company over. So Arjuna, as I said, your investment in Sri Lanka is quite new. Could you elaborate on your experience and also comment on the human capital angle, the human capital that we have on offer, and how, as your industry is highly dependent on skilled labor, and how what your experience has been in that area?
Happy to, Roshani. As D. Lianwala mentioned yesterday, we were looking at upgrading our tech portfolio back in 2009, and we came across this great company with a fantastic product portfolio called Millennium IT. And we acquired the company because it had a lot of merit to integrate their products into our portfolio.
we not only brought that into our product line, we made it part of our core business. And in 2010, we hit a home run. We made it the fastest trading engine in the world. And we saw the talent of Sri Lanka and what it can bring as a strategic investment to the group. So in 2016, we further enhanced our investment by bringing in a center of excellence. And with that, without restricting ourselves to software engineering and research and development, we got into tech services, finance, and a lot of the shared services that we cover as HR and corporate services like legal. So as you can see, we broadened our value offering out of Sri Lanka. And by the time we speak today, we are continuing to invest in our facilities. Today, we have a 25-acre campus in Malambe, which is one of the state-of-the-art and which is very unique in this part of the world. And we also have a state-of-the-art center of excellence in the Trade Expert City, where we bring London to Sri Lanka. We compete globally, and we maintain very competitive rate cards. And that has happened because we see fantastic skills in Sri Lanka. Our colleagues in Sri Lanka, they are multi-skilled. They can handle complex tasks, and their ingenuity keeps us improving our facilities, the global services, because we cover a lot of complex scope out of Sri Lanka. We run London Stock Exchange and the related exchanges that we cover in the globe. We do clear post-trade like London Clearing House, which is a great responsibility. And we do cover data and analytics as part of our global offerings. So these are very complex services that we cover out of Sri Lanka. It has been extremely resilient to provide these services throughout the years. And we have been very satisfied with the quality of engineers and the professionals that we see coming out of the graduate schemes in Sri Lanka. Over the years, our colleagues have gone up the ladder, and they have got promoted, and they are holding global positions. And because of that, we see ourselves integrating more into the Sri Lankan investment and making it a bigger success. Part of this has come because we have integrated ourselves into graduate schemes. Not only we have plowed benefits, but we have planted good seeds. We have invested in the graduate schemes. We have developed youth. We have brought in concepts like diversity and inclusion and promoted those. LSEG, for example, we have a 30% gender mix, and we continue to expand that as a target. And we have been in the forefront of CSR. What all this means is we have been a global organization with a very nice local touch. And for us to operate in this very successfully, obviously we've got a lot of help from BOI when we initially set up, and when we continue to expand our business, we have seen that coming right throughout as a very good establishment in Sri Lanka. We have to also commend the administrative officers because we work very closely with them. We also would like to appreciate the diplomatic officers, both Sri Lanka and UK, and most of the trade associations that we actively participate. So that has been a journey of success, and we have been very successful in operating out of Sri Lanka and creating a value proposition which is globally very competitive for LSEG. With that, Roshani, I would like to hand you back. Yeah, I would love to take some questions if there's time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Arjuna. Next up, Mark Protero. Mark, HSBC is one of the most known, widely accepted, well-engaged foreign banks in Sri Lanka. HSBC has also seen Sri Lanka at its best and at its worst. Given that you have been operating here for more than 129 years, no less, you've also invested in and run a global service center here with over 2,500 staff. From your vantage point of a lender, financier, and a banker to many companies and sectors, what are some of the bright spots coming out from these sectors, and which sectors stand out for you in Sri Lanka's growth journey? I might also add, could you also share some advice to potential investors who may be considering Sri Lanka at this moment?
Okay, thank you very much, Roshani. The first thing I would say is that clearly the Sri Lankan economy has been through a very difficult period the last 2 to 3 years with not one but two black swan events. But nevertheless, the rebound from those events has actually been very impressive, and I'm delighted to talk about some of the bright spots in the economy and also some of those sectors that I see really allowing us to grow and achieve that 2 times GDP in the coming decade. I think the first sector I would start with is the manufacturing apparel sector. We really do have global leading companies in this sector, and fortunately we don't make in this country clothes like I'm wearing today, men's suits and shirts and ties. The verticals that we're involved in are primarily, athleisure and sports and cotton sort of fabrics, which are, in this new normal of COVID world is really what is in demand globally. So we have seen a very strong rebound in the apparel sector. I think if you take the first quarter 21 performance, it's in line with the first quarter 19. So you can see, that's actually been very good. I think we also stand to gain from supply chain disruption as well, and hopefully we can gain market share in Sri Lanka. The second industry I would reference is the tourism industry. Clearly not a bright spot at the moment, but when you just project forward a few years and you imagine the world has been vaccinated and that COVID is largely behind us, there is going to be a huge pent-up demand to travel. And as we've heard already, Sri Lanka has some incredible attributes when it comes to tourism. I think we do still need to market ourselves better, and that has improved in recent years. And there's some modernization to also come as well. But we really should see incredible growth in the tourism sector. The third sector for me would be the KPO, BPO space. Roshani referenced it earlier. HSBC has actually run a BPO site here since 2004, and it's been very successful. We employ over 2,500 people in that site. Last year, we processed 13 million transactions for 41 countries, and it's all done very accurately with very low staff turnover and competitive wages. So I think the BPO, KPO, IT space in Sri Lanka has a lot more opportunity, and I've been surprised that more MNCs haven't actually chosen to base their BPO sites here. So hopefully that will pick up in the future. I think then when you look at the special economic zones, there's a huge potential there. Port City just behind us, then you have the Hambantota economic zone, which is just 8 miles to the north of the main east-west shipping route. Massive potential down there as well. And then you have the Farmer special zone as well. So a lot of potential there. I haven't even touched on logistics. I mean, we have one of the fastest growing ports in the world in Colombo, Hambantota as well. Trincomalee in the west has not yet been developed, but that's another naturally deep port. So in the future, we can see tremendous growth in logistics. And I think finally, Roshani, I would say infrastructure is bound to be a sector over the next 10 years that will continue to perform well. There's still a significant amount of modernization needed in the economy, whether it's the road network or the rail network. So we do expect to see a lot of growth there. Turning to your last question about advice to investors, we have largely a UK audience, so I'm bound to say that you should choose a bank that's large in the UK, that has been here 129 years, that can make all the right introductions. But no, I think the key thing is in Sri Lanka is knowing the right people, coming to speak to the BOI, talking to joint venture partners. I think that's absolutely critical. And just coming to Sri Lanka is another great piece of advice. You really have to be here to see it for yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for that. And yes, you have to be here. I know it's not conducive right now to travel, but when the airports open and when it's safe to travel, I think we suggest that you come here and have a look for yourself. I have a couple of questions, and I thought we will handle that. If I can turn to Dumit. Dumit, there's been a flight of capital from the Colombo Stock Exchange latterly. What are we doing to get them back? What are we doing to encourage them to stay or come back?
Yeah, I think factually you can't get away from that factor. I think since the pandemic, there has been a flight of capital by foreign investors out of Sri Lanka. But just to put it in context, we have lost, something over $125 million right now. If you take some of the other regional countries, markets like Korea and others, the outflow has been in the billions, some to the tune of $3 to $6 billion. So it has helped that we are a relatively smaller market, and it has also helped that we have had a policy environment that has been very conducive to strong capital markets. Interest rates are down over 400 basis points. We have seen the domestic manufacturing incentives that have allowed domestic manufacturers to perform at record levels. The stock exchange earnings in the last quarter was the best ever in its history of 35 years. So all I can say is if there is outflow, it's at your own peril. Because whoever is leaving this market now is leaving the best time in the market in the history. So I think it's important to understand what fears have precipitated this. One has clearly been fears around the sovereign debt issue and so on. And I think it's very clear that we are working through multiple bilateral agreements. In previous sessions, I heard there are about 10 different close to successful bilateral conversations that will help us get our reserves back to levels that might have been expected for refinancing in the sovereign bond market. You have seen the sovereign bond spreads crash, meaning much higher confidence in the strength of the sovereign. So that's good news. A second issue, I think there was an outflow of capital, was during the pandemic, and I don't want to talk about the past, but during the pandemic last year, the nature of our market here and the operations was such that there was some amount of settlement risk from continuing to operate the market at a time where we had hard curfews and lockdowns. So when the markets reopened in May of last year after a few weeks shut down, we very, very swiftly moved towards digitizing the stock exchange and its operations. Not just operations within the stock exchange, but also operations between the stock exchange and its intermediaries, and then the operations between intermediaries and clients. So I'm happy to say that it was a real reflection of the dynamism of both the market regulator and the market operator. And we were able to put things in place such that in October last year and over the last few weeks, when we have pretty much close to full lockdowns or travel restrictions, we have operated 100%, sometimes with all of our staff operating remotely. And the stock exchange has and will continue to operate so. So I think any fears people might have had from a year ago should really be dispelled now. So I think, beyond that, I think it boggles my mind why people would not want to be here when valuations are so attractive, earnings are growing so well, and there's so much demand from the local market to support this market as well.
And we've had record earnings from some of our companies.
Absolutely.
The last quarter. I turn to Sanjay. I have a question here from the audience. Being in the software industry, we're looking for viable partners for both channel partners and investors. What is the traction for the software industry?
I would say traction is quite strong, just like what Dumit mentioned in terms of the capital markets point of view. If you look at the software and ICT segment, which has added at least 300 million, give or take, we are still in the process of getting the statistics, in the last year in terms of export value. So I think one thing that this pandemic taught was that it's much more acceptable to work from home or work from a remote location. So there's a lot more work that comes to Sri Lanka from developed countries, Europe, UK in particular. And many of the companies are looking to take advantage of Sri Lankan talent pool, like the London Stock Exchange being one, and base the development, the IP generation, the support services in Sri Lanka. So any of the large software companies were looking to have a channel partner. So there's a whole plethora of companies, starting from large companies like the Virtusa, like who went was a $2 billion acquisition and went private, to a vibrant ecosystem of startups, whether it is cryptocurrencies to emerging technologies. So we have that entire stack, and depending on the vertical that you are in, you could always find a channel partner or a development partner or a JV opportunity to take advantage of the talent pool here. And most of the companies here will also be very glad to engage and discuss. And as BOI, I'm glad to facilitate through either the embassy or directly reaching out to us in terms of putting you in touch with some of the potential partners for you all to take the discussions forward. So I would say there's ample opportunity and quite a few good dance partners for you to consider in Sri Lanka.
Indeed. So there you are. You got the answer from Sanjay. Please do get in touch with Sanjay or any one of us. We'll be more than happy to find you a partner here. Arjuna, I have a question for you. How are you growing the pool of educated ICT workers in the country? What are your plans to build polytechnics and technological universities? How many new graduates every year? I know it was said that we're planning on increasing our graduate pool threefold in the next few years. This is in your industry, so I'd like to pose it to you. I'm sure you're aware of what the country is doing to increase the talent pool. Can we hear it from you?
Yeah, so this is a challenge when the industry is growing. We need to keep feeding new graduates in, and we have to also ensure that there's quality in all the intakes. So when an industry is growing, part of the responsibility of the players in that industry is to grow and broaden that industry over a period of time. So Sri Lanka has got a strategy in place to grow the industry and grow the professionals and work towards building the curriculum so that the graduation to getting employed is faster, and you have various work streams which were not conventionally there. So the organizations can come, they can set up themselves, establish certain skills that are in demand, and ready to go to market straight from where you set up, as Sanjay mentioned, when you have a channel partner or an investment opportunity. So how this works is we are working very closely with SLASCOM, which is the body that represents all the industries in Sri Lanka. And we are all part of that. We develop the curriculums, we go into regional development of universities. We go and create capacity in terms of various ways. One is by ensuring that more people move into this as a stream of education, because we see more and more professionals joining this industry and creating fantastic careers. So why do you need to go in and try out a different segment of the education and later on come to ICT sector? You don't need that. So part of it is awareness. Another part of it is going in and enriching the syllabuses so that the current trends in the industry are captured in our curriculum. And another part of it is going in and giving that experience as internships because it's our responsibility to make sure that these graduates are ready to take challenges and they have seen the world when they pass out from these universities. So this collective thought process is in action, and we have work streams, multiple work streams in the industry to ensure that there is a systematic supply that comes in with the demand that is created. There are new work streams being created on areas like artificial intelligence, data science, and robotic process automations as we speak. There are center of excellences being created by SLASCOM to ensure that there is skills in demand that are catered to the industry without creating any vacuum. So one of the advices that I can give at this forum is, if you're planning to set up an organization here and if you're having any doubt, one of the best things is to engage with the trade industries and make that query. Especially for ICT, I recommend BOI and the SLASCOM so that they can take in your request and work with the graduate schemes, the universities, private and public, by the way. They're quite engaged, and they'll build up your pipeline. And by the time you expand and establish yourself, you won't see much of a challenge in establishing the correct quality of resources in Sri Lanka. This has been going on for some time, and I'm quite confident to say that Sri Lanka can take over and grow this industry to the 2 billion and the 3 billion that we are talking about, and expand this service sector to what it is and where we want to go as a country. Over to you, Roshani.
Thank you, Sanjay. Arjuna. Sanjay, would you like to add to that and elaborate on the education infrastructure we are planning on and building?
Sure. I think Arjuna touched base on the concerted effort that that's in play. So if you look at Sri Lanka, it's always a policy orchestration. It's a public sector and a private sector partnership. So you have the ministry, the ICTA, you have the SLASCOM, where all the private sector companies coming in together. You have the education ministry and BOI. So there's 4 pillars or 4 cornerstones in terms of how you orchestrate this segment. So if you look at the talent pool, there's the existing talent pool. How do you reskill? And I think Arjuna talked about AI and new skills and new areas where upskilling happens. The second part of it is the talent pipeline. How do you expand it? So that means there are a couple of college universities who produce top-notch graduates. How do you expand the number of seats and also enable that curriculum to be lived or studied by others who don't get the opportunity to come to the university? I think the COVID gave a good opportunity for us to bring most of our education infrastructure online and have created that expansion. Then the third part of it is that the existing graduates who have not gone into an IT curriculum, but maybe sciences, mathematics, political sciences, government has introduced a 2-year focus curriculum by which they are made computer literate, and the only requirement is for them to work in the ICT segment. Then the last part, or one part to add, is to expand the capacity in the university. Apart from introducing curriculum or changing the curriculum with the education department, increasing the number of seats, providing it online. BOI, we are looking at least ushering in 2 to 3 universities who will partner in this journey in terms of creating the talent pool. Then the next part of it is there are many school leavers, GCE O-levels or A-levels, who do not get into this pipeline. So that's where companies like HCL would come into play, where they will recruit individuals at that level, will go through an aptitude test, select the brightest, and take them through the journey to a diploma university while working. And repeatedly, these companies have said when they did the aptitude test, the Sri Lankan talent pools, a few notches above than what they had seen in the region. So that's another way of getting in people to that. Then I would say medium to long term, it's about creating digitized schools where the ICT has been, or technology has been introduced to schools, computer labs, in terms of digital interactive sessions, classrooms, so on and so forth. So you bring computer literacy much early or younger in terms of a child's development. So you see that the pipeline will come into fruition some 3 years down the line from the school's point of view, immediate in terms of skill point of view, existing individuals getting reskilled, and in the medium term, the universities, the graduate pool, and also the school leavers converting into ICT. So there's a concerted effort to double, triple that talent pool. And I think we have about 13% of the top talent leave the country. So by creating opportunities here, that will be retained here as well. So these are a few of the ways that we'll create that melting pot and a very vibrant ecosystem in terms of talent pool point of view.
Thank you, Sanjay. I hope you got the answer for that. That was an extensive answer from Arjuna and Sanjay both. So we come to the close of the UK session, UK country session of the Sri Lanka Investment Forum 2021. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope it was informative. Dumit talked about capital markets and why you should be participating now and not postpone it any longer. And Mark talked about the different industry verticals that you should be looking at. Sanjay talked about the enabling environment and what we are in terms of facilitation and support the government and the regulator is providing. And of course, we had extensive discussions on the ICT industry with Arjuna leading the way through his experience. And thank you very much. All that is left is for you to come over and start something here. Thank you for joining us.